Welcome to Stuck, Time to Improv. I'm Mary Scott with Business Riff, and I want startups to be wildly successful. Today, we're going to be talking about pitch decks because you need to be able to explain things to potential investors and potential clients, two different kinds of decks. But our guest today is Pam Lippit from Hill Street Group. Thanks for
Hi.
coming, Pam.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's always lovely to be welcomed into a podcast and talk about what I'm so passionate about.
Well, let's talk about pitch deck.
Okay.
What are some of the misconceptions people might have?
Well, the first thing I have learned recently is that there are people who don't even know the term slide deck as opposed to PowerPoint. And so the first thing I want to say is we've kind of renamed things. I think it's because so many people are using Canva and other programs to do their presentations. So when we talk about pitch decks, that's specifically aimed toward investors. Then there are client-facing pitch decks, and then there are regular presentation pitch decks, and they all kind of weave together, but have some specific things that are different.
Okay, well, let's talk about what you need to put into a deck for investors.
So I would say that the most important thing to remember is that your deck is part of your brand. It is not a standalone piece that has nothing to do with anything else you've ever done. So I oftentimes find people who go, oh, look, that's a pretty template. I'll use that. But it doesn't have the colors and the fonts and the thing you are known for, the logo you are known for. So the first thing to do is to make your pitch deck part of your brand so that when people look at other things, they make sure to include them. So that's like my first start. And I would say including your logo and how to contact you. I just was at a program last week with a really great PR person. It was a great presentation. And she asked me for my feedback at the end. And I said, yeah, don't you want clients? Your name's not on here. And if someone pulls, especially in a pitch deck, if an investor deck, if someone pulls out a single slide, it no longer has your information. So for an investor deck, you have to remember that an investor doesn't necessarily know your whole company and what your ins and outs and the minutia of what you're doing is. So they need to learn really quickly from you what the pain point is, why you're going to fix it, and why you have invented the best machine to slice bread.
I always tell people, you have the first opening statement is, you help these people solve this problem so they can.
Exactly.
And how you do it is your secret sauce. But I love the point about making sure, even if it's a little copyright thing with your name and your company name on the bottom of every slide. And then the last slide is big letters, your name, your contact information, and whatever the ask is.
And I also, especially on an investor pitch, want people to put the date on there. You know, just like a Word doc, you can add a footer to a pitch deck. Use it, make it narrow, make it little, but use it and put the date on, because especially when you're talking to investors, you want them to know if this is current or they're looking at something that someone passed on to them that could be 6 or 8 months old. And you may have pivoted everything you're doing and redone all your numbers and refigured things out, but they're not seeing it, nor do they know that it's not dated. So we talked about the idea of telling people how you can help them, what is wrong with what is current, how you can do it better, use some words, but also remember, investor deck is not important to use SEO words. This has to be simple, straight to the point, so that people can understand and move along the journey with you.
Right. And it's bullet points. You take them on
Yes.
the journey with what you say, not with
Right.
what's up on the screen.
Right.
I hate it when people read their pitch deck.
You know,
Don't
I
do
use
that.
and to that point, some people say to me, well, yeah, but if I'm not telling them, how will they know if there's only these bullet points? So I think of it as an outline. You know, there are great tools out there. So you can load, I have every client load their pitch deck like into Vidyard or one of these things where, or Zoom, where you put your little picture up on the side and you talk it through. And then you save it as an MP4, as a recording, and that's what you're sharing out. The deck has to have, you know, your roadmap, where you've been, where you're at, and where you're going. And lots of times we use just a squiggly line with different dates and highlight two or three things at each point. You don't have to put every single thing you've done in there. Nobody cares. They care what's working today. So that's important. It's important to put your money and your raises to date and what you're projecting and when you're projecting it. And I learned from I was brought in to do the finals of a social entrepreneurship class at the Ross Business School at the University of Michigan to grade these pitch decks and presentations. And I'll be honest, all this stuff I've been telling you, that's what I looked for. The guy in the other seat is a real finance guy. So we were a great match and we're friends. He looked at it and said, wait, do you expect people to stay with you if you are never increasing their salaries after 3 or 4 years? So you need to think out when you're doing this, you know, not just in the moment, but where you're getting to.
So how many slides are in a good pitch deck?
I say no more than 15. I know people want, and again, anything you share should only be that finalized version, not your hidden slides that are at the end. I have had people who have said to me, oh, it's okay, I have 40 slides, I'll just fast forward through them. And I said, do you know the meeting I got you? You are not fast forwarding through slides. You're going to be on an airplane for 10 hours and you're redoing your pitch deck. Surprise. So I say, you know, an opening, I always like to create one that's special for who I'm talking to, put their name and their branding on it as well on your front page. So they know you've thought about them. And this is a conversation with specific investors, not just a generic deck. And then the end is your contact information. The more, the better. Nobody's upset if you have more links than they need. And then your meat is in the middle. And you have a certain amount of time and you're gonna pretty much know what your time is. So I say your deck should not take up more than 50 to 60% at most of your time. You want there to be time for questions.
Because the more questions you get, the more likely you are going to get money.
Right. And, you know, have you ever gone to a lecture? And the lecture is fine. And whoever's doing the lecture is kind of reading off their notes and they may be very good. They may be. But then when the questions start, they become phenomenal. And you're like, I'm so glad I waited. That's where you want to take your people on a journey, even though it's a financial journey, it's still a journey that you're asking them to go along with you on. And you want to have time for them to come up with thoughtful questions.
Well, thank you so much, Pam Lippit from Hill Street Group. We will put your contact information in the comments and give people a chance to get to know you better as well. This is Mary Scott with Business Riff. I want startups to be wildly successful. One of the best things you can do to get there is to book a synergy call with me at businessriff.com. And join us again next time for Stuck, Time to improv.